Today I'm joined by Daniel Major, Goviex Uranium CEO. Daniel, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Lucian. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, always a pleasure to talk to you, Daniel. Before we jump to the company's projects and developments, I want to hear your impressions from PDAC. What was the sentiment for uranium there?
Yeah, actually, I've just done Mines and Money, BMO, pre-PDAC and PDAC. So yeah, quite a bit. I think, until right at the end, the only metal anyone cared about was uranium. Everything else was in the doldrums across the board. It was fairly depressing, and particularly for a lot of the juniors and developers and explorers. I mean, they just were just not seeing any pleasure. I mean, obviously at the end, we started to see gold run, so people's enthusiasm, the gold bulls got excited. But I think overall, for mining in general, it's tough at the moment. But thankfully for us, we had a lot of meetings in all of those conferences. Uranium has now really peaked. There was a lot of generalist funds there as well, who I've not seen before, and who have not really put anything into uranium. So, good to see new faces, more generalist funds looking at the uranium space. So, yeah, plenty for the future.
Great. What about Goviex specifically? You talked with a lot of people, like you said, from retail investors to the big boys. What were the most common questions you got from the retail, and what were the most common questions you got from the big boys?
But much the same, I think, and you're about to ask me that question. Tell me about Niger. So I think that was generally the first question that came out of most people's mouths, which is, tell me about Niger. And then obviously, where are we on our projects, which is always of interest. And then just generally some, what are our expectations going forward on the market, which are sure pretty well in line go to the questions you're about to hit me with.
Definitely. There they go. Can you give my audience a fresh update on Niger business, political, safety situation? Are we going to full normalization?
Well, we're certainly heading towards a much more normal situation than we were sitting with. The lifting of the sanctions by ECOWAS now allows some stability and reduces the level of conflict that was sitting in the region. And I'm not talking, just big political conflict between the members of ECOWAS in general. There seems to be much more of an olive branch approach between ECOWAS and the three in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, and trying to find a way forward. I'm seeing as well the EU pushing back as well into Niger and wanting to do things there. Interesting, the Nigerians were looking to work with, looking to stop people trafficking again, something they had started to let go and are now arresting people. So there seems to be a degree of returning to normality. The government, as we had always said, it was all about wanting to get things built. I mean, no matter which government you've got, and people look at, Niger as in Burkina Faso and military governments, and like, well, this is just part of politics in that part of the world. These things happen. They're just part of political change. So, you're seeing development. You've got power back into the country now that Nigeria has turned the power lines back on. That helps. We're still waiting for the Benin and Nigeria borders to open. The Nigerians are keeping them closed at the moment, but that won't take much longer to happen. I mean, Niger wants to pump oil out through Benin, and Nigeria is sending power in. At some point, both of them are going to say, "Hey guys, you've got to, open your borders as well." So expect that to happen, and that's calmed things down a lot. Going forward. So, we're fully engaged with government, always have been.
Yeah.
And it now makes our life easier as well to start progressing our projects.
Okay, so you are moving forward your Madaouela project. Last week, you announced the commencement of financing due diligence. Can you explain what that means exactly and how long will this process last?
Yeah, I mean, one of the good things for investors from that point of view is if you take the debt route, there's a lot more rigorous review of what the hell you're doing. And particularly if you are getting DFI or ECA backed financing, because now you've got governments taking on that risk by providing you funding. So the first stage that has to get through is the environmental review. Nobody will invest in if you haven't got your environmental situation sorted out. And that applies both with ECAs and actually a lot of the European utilities are the same. They won't sign a contract with you unless you've dealt with that. So this is a good step forward for us to deal with that. The technical due diligence has still got to be done, but we're moving forward with the environmental because we need that one ticking off. That one takes about 2 to 3 months, and then we go into the technical, and that'll be based on the feedback that comes from the ECAs and the DFIs. We're probably looking most of this year to be able to sort out the whole process. Where we are from the lender's point of view. I mean, and what I've said before as well still stands valid is that the nice thing for us is Global Atomic have basically got the same lending group, and therefore if they move forward and get out of the way almost, it's going to be so much easier because they will have laid out the path of structuring that's required. The parties will be a lot more comfortable with the countries and how that structure is going to work, and it'll then come back down to much more the technical side and the straight Goviex issues of how does our project look from an environmental point of view, how does our project look from a technical point of view, rather than the larger regional issues.
Yeah, SLR Consulting is appointed on behalf of prospective lenders to provide environmental and social due diligence. Do you know what kind of due diligence is that exactly? I mean, what is the process here?
Absolutely. I mean, they literally go through everything related to Goviex related to ESG. So anything that you would put in an ESG box, we're going to get interrogated, whether that is our ESIA as it stands as a document, whether it is our health and safety systems, whether that is our stakeholder engagement programs and how we deal with that. All of those aspects of ESG is effectively what they're going to. I mean, they get down to great level of detail. So it's not just a cursory read of the ESIA and go, well, it's a nice document, thank you very much. They dig in deep and come back and then provide recommendations, which, depending on how they are, we'll have to deal with.
Yeah, the company currently has expressions of interest in excess of 200 million for the project-related debt finance. Possible financiers include government-backed institutions, like you said, this export agencies, developments, commercial banks, etc. Daniel, total initial capital cost for Madaouela is around 340 million. What is the plan with financing here? 200 million debt and the rest will be equity, or do you plan to take some offtake agreements, prepaying future production? Tell me more.
The current plan at the moment would not involve prepayment, because once you take the prepayment, then you obviously don't have those revenues to cover your operating costs going forward. And you want to securitize to get that for the higher prices of when you're operating to pay down. At the moment, I think the one thing that is more interesting in this as well, and even back to the debt, is that the number of parties that we had been to before and who'd said no when we were at $50 uranium have come back and said, look, now we're interested at $100 uranium. Can we get involved? So, certainly on the debt side, there's a potential there to bring more into the syndicate, a lot more people into that syndication going forward, and then potentially increase that position from where it currently is. And we'll see how that goes. And some will move faster and some will move slower in that process. On the equity side, we wouldn't be coming to the market for any substantial equity until we're much further down on the debt side. However, there are opportunities here as well, though, to look at partnershiping on the project itself. There are an increasing number, one of the things that's driving the uranium price is the security of supply. And so there are groups out there who see that as a risk. And, we are open to conversations at a project level, whereby, a partner may be coming in at the project level. I mean, nothing on the cards at the moment, but certainly, that's a scope we're opening up on, reaching out on to say, right, who are the expected potential partners who could do that, and see if there's something on the ground to move that forward.
It's good to hear. You mentioned the interesting thing, Global Atomic. Your company and Global Atomic both are going through the financing at a similar time with similar players, so to say. Is there a way that you could work together to save costs, share a mill, labor, equipment? I don't know, just an idea.
We're about 140 kilometers apart. It takes about 3 hours to 2 to 3 hours to drive that. I mean, look, there would be potential synergies, obviously, from a procurement point of view, those kind of things. So that's an option within to go forward. But at the same time, you've got to remember that both of these companies are trying to raise money to build projects. So neither company really can afford to try and build the two of them at exactly the same time. So, that's a bit tricky. But, longer term, who's to say it doesn't make sense for the two companies to get a closer relationship, particularly from an administrative point of view. I mean, it's logical that you run a corporate structure in the same way Orano have done for years out of Niamey. That does the buying for two mines, that does the HR for two mines, it does the accounting for two mines. That's a possibility. But obviously, we still have to go through the stages we're at the moment to see where that gets to.
Daniel, ideal circumstances. I know that there is no such thing in the world, but let's say ideal circumstances, when will you produce first pound of uranium?
At the moment, that would be, let's say we can get everything sorted out financially this year, then that I've always said it's 2 years to build, which was now put production sometime in 2027.
Okay. We discussed a little bit on the offtake agreements. Do you see more interest parties knocking on your door because we are seeing that the uranium price is going up, demand, etc.? Do you see more interest parties knocking on your door and try to secure some offtake agreements from your company future production?
Yeah, I'm going to use this as a great opportunity to segue for you. So yes, is the answer to that, and particularly regarding Zambia. We have had a lot of feedback coming to us for people saying, look, where are you guys on Zambia? Can we talk about Zambia? Can we talk about production out of there? I think we're going to see that change now as well, and more even spread between the two. And because a lot of the utilities as well were like, well, we really don't know how to handle Niger at this time. But I think now that sanctions are lifted, now that we're pushing forward again, we are definitely back out into the market, explaining and looking for contract again, which we had paused for a period of time, partly because Zambia had to get closer to its DFS, partly because in Niger we were also waiting politically. And so Chris Lewis, our sales uranium marketing guy, is definitely now back out into the market saying, look, we can deliver from either project, or is basically our approach now. We can deliver from this project or this project, and starting to pitch it as a pair going forward.
Got it. Daniel, what are the development aspects of Madaouela that are still paused due to a situation? They are not going well, so to say.
I don't think nothing is not going well. I think we just have to time things appropriately. I mean, the stuff we're now starting to do on the field is, getting the early works done, getting some of the site prep ready. You still have to go through the final engineering and design stage on some of the equipment, because you need that as much for the civils engineering design to know exactly what it is. We need to start pulling together where we stand on all of the long lead items. So it's just going to take time. We put everything onto pause. We needed to find a step forward, and the removal of those sanctions was a big step for us to go forward. So we'll slowly increase the amount of work we're doing on the field, and chase forward on where we are with the financing of it in its different forms, whether that's the debt or the equity we discussed, and the longer term equity, and move those issues along. And in the meantime, we'll do what we can in the field to get everything moving, and also on the engineering side.
Yeah. Daniel, let's talk more numbers for Madaouela. We know that this project works at $65, $70, but I believe that when you enter production, we could be well north of $100. For example, I look at your NPV numbers at 60, 65, and 70. For example, with $70 uranium, your NPV is $200 million, 220 including moly. Great numbers when you consider that your market cap is almost half of those numbers. But my question is, how are we looking at $100, $120 uranium with NPV on Madaouela?
I've never even put that in. I mean, even at $75 and at $20 moly, because that's where moly really is, you're looking at $339 for an NPV on this project. I mean, at $65, you were looking at an $82 million EBITDA.
Yeah.
You know, and then everything is just leverage up on that because, of course, most of your costs don't go up. So, you know, you're looking at a very robust project here over 80. You know, even at $80, $90 contract, this would be a very solid project. You know, you can do the maths anyway, because I think for every $5,
yeah,
for $5, I think it adds like $80 million to the NPV. I mean, that's the kind of number that flows through there. So it is pretty robust, but I'd have to just check that myself on the presentation that we have on there. But if you can do that, so in the presentation that's on our website, there's a 65 and 75. If you just do the addition for every $10, you get the same step all the way up. So yeah,
very robust, definitely.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Let's discuss Mutanga. What is new?
All the work that I'm currently plowing through at the moment. So a lot of work going on Mutanga at the moment. We're fully engrossed on the engineering design for the process plant side. We are moving steadily through the final test work that needs to be done from a process design, because don't forget Dibwe East was not there. We got a slightly bigger resource coming back, adding to the M&I. But that's because we did more infill drilling on it. So yeah, a lot to go. I mean, and that's an interesting one, which, you know, we did that one previously at the pit shells were done at $50 under the PEA, and we did $58 in the model. And now all of a sudden we're looking at, you know, $80 and $90 as our model to go forward, and figuring out, you know, how that impacts the project and enlarges it. So yeah, a lot of good movement. We're still expecting to be ready in the third quarter. You know, that's still our expectation on that project, but a lot of engineering still to go through.
Okay, any exploration work plan?
Not at the moment, but we are starting to have another look at what we can do in Zambia to expand out. We've got some sterilization drilling to do, which looks like we're going to find it happens to be sitting right on top of target. So we are going to do some exploration, but it's more focused on sterilization drilling. And then, yeah, we'll see what else we can do in Zambia.
Okay, you are in the middle of the process of doing a feasibility study for Mutanga. How is that going?
Well, as I say, you know, it's very robust at the moment. I mean, I'm having no red flags come up. I mean, as you can appreciate, I mean, I think I said to you when I met you last time, we were in a meeting. There were 12 different disciplines sitting there at that table to go through. There's a lot of different parts that have to fit together on this, but no red flags from anyone at this time. So going well.
Great. Let's talk numbers also for Mutanga. I know that the PEA, the last PEA is not valid anymore after you updated resource on Mutanga, but I will use these numbers as a guide. At $100 uranium, Mutanga NPV was around $520 million. That is a great number. My question is to you, Daniel, can we expect, are you expecting approximately similar numbers with the PEA?
I mean, the one thing to remember, of course, there will be some inflation. So you're upping the price without upping any costs.
Okay.
There will be some I mean, the PEA was done in 2017. You know, part of our engineering now is what can we carve out of those costs and what can we do to engineer them away and deal with it. You know, we'll wait to see kind of finally, but, you know, it's going to be a very robust number. I mean, it might not be $500 million, it might be $400 million. Who knows what the final answer? But you're not going to see it down at low numbers. I mean, it's still the project in Zambia has some real benefits to it. I mean, it's very low strip ratio. It's very soft rock, so we don't need to mill it. We just crush it. We crush it very coarse as well. Power costs in Zambia are pretty cheap. I mean, they're between 7 and 10 cents a kilowatt hour. We're a very low acid consumer in a country that exports acid because of what it produces out of the copper belt. So, these are all good things for that project, which is why it gets away being so robust.
Yeah. How deep is that deposit?
Oh, it's very shallow. I mean, we're hitting uranium from, a few meters below the surface, and then it goes down. I think the deepest we get is 140 meters, which is Dibwe East. But that's continually mining layers upon layer all the way down to 140 meters. So, that's the bottom of the pit when you've mined everything out.
Yeah, that's really shallow. What about future financing for Mutanga? Do you believe that you will have easier work with financing over there?
Well, one thing it does do, and I was in Daba, is that a lot of the SADC banks, the Southern African development guys, can come into Zambia. So a lot of the banks out of South Africa would be able to be engaged. We've had discussions in the past with the ECAs out of that region as well, which are all positive. The feedback I've had is, at this provisional stage, before we have an FS, have all been positive. So I do think Zambia is going to be relatively straightforward, as straightforward as debt financing can ever be from that perspective.
Daniel, is there any news on Falea project in Mali you have?
Everything in Mali is pretty well at standstill. I mean, the government changed the mining code. We are still waiting for the regulations to be changed. In fact, there are companies just giving up and leaving Mali at the moment because nothing's happening. We're holding our position at the moment, but I don't know how long we'll keep holding our position on that one. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult. The region's just quiet. And without a mining code and regs, we can't do anything.
Yeah, I agree. But the claims are in good standing.
Well, I mean, we've got the two claims. The Falea licenses we've kind of indicated before. That one needs to be renewed. We'll actually have to put a new application in for it because it had timed out. We're sitting with that application ready to go, but we can't put the application in because there's no one to give the application to. So, it is in good standing as it stands, insofar as we can do anything.
Yeah, I got it. Daniel, what about the cash position of the company? You had a raise closed, I think, in December. You raised almost $14 million. How is the situation? Are you covered for 2024?
Yeah, based on the budget that we pulled together for the year, that was what we looked for. I mean, based on how we decide to play with the projects, if we decide to start accelerating projects for good reasons, obviously then there may be a requirement to come for more funding. I mean, as you've pointed out earlier, we've got a project to build here. And another one by the end of the year that hopefully should also be ready to start into its construction phase. So, there's plenty there, but, the work is going into getting projects to construct. That's where we push our money when we raise it, not for other reasons.
Yeah. You have a new addition on your board, Alison.
Yep.
I forgot the last name. Can you tell me more about Alison?
Yeah, Alison joined us at the beginning of this year. We had David Keats on the board prior to that, and he was an excellent board member. But David's commitments had just got, overly large for him to be able to deal with it. I mean, he still, through Denison, continues to look after that, share position they've got. I mean, they obviously want that to improve, and I met with him at PDAC, and he's still fully available to us as a consultancy basis if we need advice and his thoughts. So that's really helpful. What Alison, and the reason we asked Alison to join the board, was we very much needed support on the ESG side. We've got guys very much on the debt side, on project development, on these aspects of it. but we really needed someone who could come and give us, Alison's background is working on ESG, humanitarian issues in West Africa. As we've talked before on Zambia, we've got to do a lot of work on education, etc. And so for having someone who's got those experiences, and as we pointed out right at the beginning of this discussion, with SLR, it is really important that you have your ESG aspects ready if you want to borrow money from commercial and government lenders. So very useful at this stage to have someone with her skills joining the board to help give her experience to it.
Definitely. Final question, Daniel, in the terms of news flow for the remainder of the year, what can investors expect when and what can investors expect in the terms of news flow?
I'm not going to give you any dates, but let's say,
months. You can say months.
No, that's fine. So, literally, we'll keep updating you on where we stand with Niger and as we move forward on both the aspects of the project itself and regarding the financing of where we go forward. Obviously, we're doing work on the offtake, so if something comes through from there, we'll give guidance. Zambia is going to be relatively quiet until, of course, in the third quarter, which isn't that far away now. It's only 6 months away.
Yeah.
So, we'll be coming out with the results from that FS. So it's going to be a very busy year for us. And, if this uranium price holds out, and I think it potentially has a lot further to go up. I mean, yes, the price has come down in the last month or so, but it's just been quiet in the market. I mean, the volumes have just dropped off. I think you're going to see that pick up going forward, particularly if the US decides to impose those sanctions on Russian material, then yeah, definitely going to see a massive kick out. But I think things have certainly moved in the right direction, will continue to strengthen from this point onwards.
Agreed, 100%. That was Daniel Major, Goviex Uranium CEO. Daniel, thank you for coming to my show once again, and we will catch up again sometime soon.
I'm sure we will. Thank you very much.
I'm very glad to have Stephen Roman, Global Atomic CEO, back in my show. So, Stephen, a warm welcome. It is great to have you.
Thank you very much, Lucian. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Stephen. Stephen, next year it will be 20 years since you incorporated Global Atomic, going from literally zero to building a world-class mine today. That is a great accomplishment. Many congrats from my side. As we know, uranium is in your blood. You grew up in uranium business. Your father was also very successful and known mining name. My question to you, do you have anything you would change in this 20 years path for Global Atomic?
Well, you know what, Lucian, we were blessed with some very good luck in Niger. And it was really just a Fukushima incident in March of 2011 that created that 10-year hiatus in the uranium business. At the time before Fukushima, the price was $60, $70 a pound, and things looked very good. We had JP Morgan, Macquarie, Investec investing in our project. Things were looking very, very good for an IPO at that time. And then, of course, Fukushima happened. Luckily, we completed a financing just at the same time. Those big banks, those big investment houses decided, you know what, this project looks too good to back away, even though the uranium market was not doing well. And we used that money to really drill off a very large high-grade deposit, being now the largest, highest grade project in Africa. So, you know what? I think shortening those 20 years to maybe 10 years would have been good to get this thing all done and up and running. But you know what? You have to roll with the punches, so to speak, and carry on. And of course, we merged with our Silver Met in 2017, which gave us the more capital coming from that operation in Turkey that continued to move the project forward, because we knew we had a tiger by the tail here, Lucian, and we needed to keep working on it, keep pushing it forward. And now, of course, we've completed our ramp down to the ore zone. So we are now in the top of the ore body. We're starting to develop down dip in the footwall to open up stopes for mining, and earthworks are underway at site. So by Q4 this year, we should be getting equipment for the plant starting to arrive on site. And then throughout the end of this year and all through next year, we'll construct that processing plant and turn it on at the end of next year, Lucien.
Okay, I will torture you with the details a little bit later. Before we start with the questions about your company and the projects, I want to hear your impressions from PDAC. You talked with a lot of people, I presume. So how is the uranium sentiment?
The uranium sentiment is really good. I would say from all of the big forums held at the PDAC, the uranium sessions got the most people coming. There were hundreds of people there. There were some very good companies presenting. Global Atomic also presented there, but a huge amount of people at the PDAC this year. I would expect over 30,000. I don't know the exact numbers, but many, many people, and all the buzz was about uranium.
That's great.
Now, I will add something else, is that in speaking with institutional investors, many of them exited the uranium space already. So they came in and they ran up with the uranium price and they made money on all these stocks, and then they were selling. And now I think it's time to just get them invigorated again and get them in there for the next leg up in the uranium space.
Spot on, Stephen, definitely. Stephen, what is the political and safety situation in Niger as we speak? Are we going to full normalization, and what's your thoughts in that direction?
So safety-wise, everything's fine. It was a very peaceful coup. The government now, in current government, has installed civilians as heads of departments, ministers, prime minister. They're all civilian people that know how to run the government. They have said that they will be talking to the population about when they should call an election. As I mentioned, this is the second coup, I think, that I've been through here, one in 2010 and now this one in 2023. But you know what? I think generally speaking, the government has been very supportive. They want this project to be built. They know that they need to create jobs and tax revenue for the country. And the Americans being involved in the project with the banking side, but also offtakes from utilities, and then the big embassy and presence in Niger, they've also been promoting the project to the local government, and everybody's on side.
That's great. You mentioned what is the status on the construction site, but how is the situation with labor, skilled personnel? No problems there?
No, we've not had any problems. You might remember that Cominac shut down a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So we brought on a lot of those very key people from Cominac to set up initially our core team. And now we've been going out on both regional and nationwide hiring campaigns. We have 275 people working there now, Lucien, and as we start further construction and more work going on site with the surface work and the plant construction, we have to build up that workforce. So we are actually doubling the size of the camp right now to over 500. And in the next 6 months, we'll have probably 500 people working there.
And the majority are locals.
Yeah, oh yeah, 98, 99% local people.
That's great. Okay,
Yeah.
Stephen, let's discuss updated Dasa project feasibility study. It was released last week. The most important highlights are the extension of mine life from 12 to 23 years, mineral reserves have increased, uranium production has increased. Can you give us an overview of this update, please?
Yes, that update was as a result of 16,000 meters of drilling we did to really move inferred resources to measured and indicated, which could then be incorporated into an updated mine plan. The deposit currently is open on strike and down dip. We have a lot of inferred resources yet to drill, and then a lot of exploration strike and down dip extensions to drill. So we will continue doing these programs. We are expecting to start drilling again in the fall this year. And once we have the next round of drilling completed, we'll be updating again the reserve base. So we've had a major increase in reserves, of course, as you mentioned, the 23 years. And I expect that will continue, Lucian, as we continue to do more work on the property.
Yeah, that exploration program is, the goal is not just to update resource, maybe to expand it a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. So right now, for instance, in our inferred category, which you can't use in your mineable reserves, you can't use inferred. Now, inferred means that the spacing of the drill holes is still too far apart to classify it in the higher level. So we have to put holes in between those larger spaced holes and move that to measured and indicated, and then you can change that by putting a mine plan, economics around mining of that material, and continue to upgrade your mineable reserves and your mine life.
Yeah.
Now, the inferred resources that we have right now are over 50 million pounds. So that would, if we can convert most of that to mineable, that would push us over 100 million pounds, I would say, in the mineable category. And that's not the end of it. We have to continue drilling and continue developing the deposit. But because it's large, we do it in stages.
Definitely. But with current numbers, you have increased 55% production to almost 70 million pounds.
Right.
Yeah, that is really a great number. We saw some also increase in cash costs, all sustaining costs. Can you explain what changed here exactly? Is that majority caused by the prolonged mine development or something else?
Well, I would say in a broad statement, it was caused by some increased costs due to inflation. Our power costs went up, but also the study included a lot of contingencies. So we put that out on the press release so people could see how many contingencies the consultants add to the costs. So over the life of mine, I think it's 280 million or some number I can't recall right off the bat. But it's a lot of contingencies that are included, which of course causes your costs to go up. Now, I think once we start operating, we'll be able to show that these costs will come down. The power costs, of course, we're hooking up to the local grid. We will be working on reducing the cost of that power, eventually integrating some solar energy there. So, we should be able to keep those costs down. But nevertheless, the costs are still in the lowest quartile globally.
Yes.
So they did go up some. The length of time of the project, of course, adds to it because then you have to continue at inflation adjustments. But really, the hardcore materials that we're using, the costs have not come up that much.
Yeah, I urge people to see that report. It is very transparent and all this is written down. So I urge people to see it. Stephen, is the project on schedule for delivering material to utilities in 2026?
Yes, we are on schedule right now. And of course, to to further on with the Niger situation, the ECOWAS, the West African Union, has dropped the sanctions against Niger. All the borders are open. The Benin border, which is our main border crossing down to the port of Cotonou, that should be open very soon. So that's going to really help us maintain our schedule. Right now, again, on the feasibility study and reason for higher costs, we've added a couple of months of additional logistics time. And of course, the freight costs going through Togo, Burkina Faso were higher. So that adds to more cost. If we can start running again through Cotonou and Benin, that will lower those costs.
Got it. Got it. I got a lot of questions from my followers before this interview, and majority of them are related to the financing. So if you can run us through the process of financing, the full financing of the project, and tell us more about it, please.
Okay, so the round numbers, 400 million for the entire project. That includes interest payments, working capital facilities, cost overrun facilities. That adds about 100 million to the project. These are things demanded by the banks. So we have a Canadian bank and a US bank working on a project financing. They are expecting to go to credit committee in April, so next month. If credit committee approves, then they go to their board in June. These are numbers or dates that they've told us. So we are moving forward with the project financing. The deal is that they would put up 60% as a debt component. We would have to put up 40%. We've spent about half of our equity component already. So there's still 75 million. It's showing in the press release 95 million. I think that's going to come down. Let's say 75 million US would still be required from us. We are working on some non-dilutive ways of bringing that money in, including some prepays on some contracts. We want to wait until after the banks go to credit committee because we want to make sure they're moving forward with the finance package. We do have some alternatives, including people that are interested in getting involved in the project, both on a debt and equity side. They're end users of uranium. They would like to secure some supplies. So we aren't 100% reliant on the banks, but that is our favored route, is to put that finance package together with the banks. It also provides us with political risk insurance. So these are things that we're working on right now.
Okay, so few options are on the table right now.
Yes.
I have another question from my follower, and he is asking, why is the date of the expected credit committee decision getting postponed? Why was it postponed? While the bank, yeah. So if you can,
it was postponed because we came out with a new feasibility study. And the banks wanted to see it, and they wanted to have their consultants review the technical aspects of that feasibility study in case there were any changes that they need to be aware of. I told them, I said, listen, the new one is better than the old one, so you were happy with the old one, you should be happy with the new one. But nevertheless, the banks being banks and consultants being consultants, they said, oh, no, we have to look at it and look at your new financial model. And then, if everything's okay, then we can go forward. Now, of course, they were supposed to go to credit committee in January. We told them we're putting out the feasibility in February, which we did. And of course, that slowed everything down by 2 months.
Okay, got it. Stephen, you have 3 offtake agreements in place with US-based utilities so far, and you got finalized the letter of intent for the sale of uranium to Europe-based nuclear power utility, which you announced recently. Can you tell us more about the terms, of course, the ones you can disclose with this European-based nuclear power utility?
Yeah, terms are basically, we try to use a blended formula, Lucien. We use a spot price, midterm, long-term price. and we have escalation provisions. So we try to capture, some component of the upside. We needed to put in, let's say, 1.5 million pounds of sales over 5 years to keep the banks happy that they're going to get their money back. So we wanted to get those locked in, but it's I would say very good pricing in the current term and higher. Also utilizing the float component. So their basic structure of the contracts is blending the price. And then what we want to do is also layer in additional contracts as we go forward. Out of 4 to 5 million pounds of annual production, we've only currently got about 1.75 million pounds committed. So we still have a lot of room. And, the idea is then to layer those contracts in over a period of time and take advantage of higher uranium prices.
Yeah, I understand that part of escalating each year, but Stephen, this is your fourth contract. Do you see with every new contract rise in price, better conditions for the contracts?
Generally, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. So, I mean, the market is going up, the prices are going up. One should expect that the agreements would be better in time frame of 1 year or even more. Okay. Stephen, do you see more activity of utilities? Are they knocking on your door more often now after things have settled and trying to secure production from Dasa?
Absolutely, Lucian. Absolutely. I think we have a lot of discussions ongoing with utilities right now. And as you mentioned, we've signed 4 deals already. There's a number of others pending. A lot of the utilities don't want to take risk. So some are more willing to take risk on a new developer. And so we're very appreciative of that. Others want to wait and see whether the banks are going to go to credit committee or not, and whether that bank package will be completed. So I think as we de-risk the project, you'll get more and more utilities coming on.
Okay, I asked the same question to Daniel Major from Goviex. Your company and Goviex both going through financing at a similar time. Is there a way, any synergies that you could work together to save costs? I don't know, share a mill, labor, equipment. I know that those 2 projects are 150 kilometers away, but is there any synergies here?
You know what? I'm sure there are. I'm not entirely sure what process Dan Major's using at Goviex. They're about 100 kilometers away, actually, so not too far. Whether we could do a joint mill, that would be probably difficult. I would think that their metallurgy is different from our metallurgy. They've got molybdenum in their ore, we do not. So, they need to have a different process. But, for instance, if they're going to have an acid plant and they need sulfur, we could bring sulfur in jointly. We can do many things that can save us both money on some of the mechanical side, electric motors and all of these kinds of things that maybe we can have synergies between their plant and our plant and save money that way. So yeah, we haven't really gotten there yet with Goviex because they are further behind in their development schedule.
Yeah.
But as we move forward, I'm sure we'll be having more conversations about that.
Okay.
We've also spoken to Orano about that.
Yeah, so that was my next question. Tell me more, please.
Well, they used to bring in 20,000 tons of sulfur to supply Cominac and Somer, and now Cominac is shut down. So, of course, if they're buying less sulfur and bringing it in smaller batches, then it would cost more money. Yeah. So I said, well, why don't we replace Cominac and bring in the same bulk amount of sulfur? We'll take half of it, you take half of it, we'll keep the cost down.
Yeah.
So, they're thinking about it.
Okay. When can we when will we know more about this deal, possible deal?
You know what? It's hard to say. From our point of view, we've put out the ideas, Lucien, and if there's interest, I guess they'll get back to us. But I can't tell you when that might be.
Sure. Fair enough. Stephen, let's do an update on Befesa zinc operations in Turkey. What is the current status of this project and production and revenue plans going forward?
Well, revenue plan is to make as much money as possible, Lucien.
Always, not just with Befesa.
No, but 2023 was a very tough year because of the earthquakes in Turkey. A lot of steel mills shut down, so we probably produced half the year or less. So we lost money in 2023. 2024 looks like it's going to be a profitable year. Most of the mills have returned to operation. Once they get up to about 80% capacity on the steel plants, we would run full. We would be able to treat all of their waste and produce quite a bit of zinc. So this plant, the new plant's capable of processing 110,000 tons of waste a year, making about 60 million pounds a year of zinc. And some of the costs, like coking coal, have come down. So, we've managed to reduce some of the costs. Of course, the zinc price has also come down from its highs, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But I think the steel mills understand that, and we're getting better deals with the steel mills. And 2024 should be back in the green.
Yeah. I know you got a lot of questions of why not sell Befesa, interest to found Dasa and consolidate financials and remain laser-focused Uranian company. In the way how I see it, Befesa is really one brilliant asset, but it's not valued in your stock price. So, Stephen, what is on the table for Befesa?
Well, listen, we could always sell it. I think the idea was that maybe we could do a spin out to the shareholders at some point, and they could have a dividend producing asset as a stub company. If the zinc price moves forward, profitability improves, that would be the time to maybe sell it, monetize it, and put that money into the Dasa development. For the moment, you're not going to get the values that I think we should get, just because the market is depressed. But at the right time, if the price is right, we could monetize it and put that money into the Dasa development.
I have no doubts that you will do this in the right way, Stephen. So waiting for that. Stephen, how is the financial position of the company at this moment? And do you believe you will have to raise money anytime soon again?
You know what? We want to wait until the banks are complete with their credit committee and then decide what is the amount that we need to raise to cover our share of the 40%. In the meantime, we're working on some offtake agreements with potential prepay. That might handle a lot of our equity requirement. So this is all in the works right now. We don't need to raise money right now. We have about 20 million, something like that, in cash currently. But I would say before the end of Q2, the banks should have completed their deliberations and made their decisions. That might be the time to come out and do something that's required to finish off the financing.
Okay, two more questions. First one is M&A. Stephen, is M&A an option? I mean, as your company to buy another assets, another companies, is that option even on the table? I mean, I know that you are focused on delivering Dasa and starting production, but are you even looking at M&A?
Basically, I always keep my eyes open for what's floating around out there. But no, we're not doing any M&A right now.
Yeah, it makes sense. But I had to ask. Final question: what and when can investors expect in the terms of news flow for the remainder of 2024?
Well, 2024, you're going to have continual updates on the progress of the build-out at Dasa. You're going to have banking completion of the financial package. You may end up with some additional drill results, both from underground and on strike. So we've got a drill rig coming in to start underground drilling in the next few months. And, you know, potentially expanding areas that we're in now with tighter spaced drilling underground. So there'll be a lot of news flow this year. And of course, we want to run an analyst trip to site probably end of November. You may want to come on that, Lucien. And
I wanted to ask you if the shareholders are invited.
wow. I mean, I can't invite 1,000 shareholders.
No, yeah, definitely.
You know, a few key analysts would be good so that they could see it. I've had a lot of inbounds from people that want to come and visit the project. So we'd like to entertain people there and show them what we're doing. Everyone that's come to site is very impressed, particularly now, and you'll see some pictures on our latest PowerPoint presentation. I was just there with my team in January for a couple of weeks. We were on site for about a week, and you know, we were doing a lot of work there, and everything is progressing very well.
That's great to hear, and please sign me in for this site visit. I will definitely come. That was Steven Roman, Global Atomic CEO. Steven, thank you very much, and I really, really wish you luck with Dasa, not just with Dasa, with your Turkey project as well, going forward. Thank you very much, sir.
Lucien, thank you very much. Some great questions today, and hopefully we can meet again soon so we can keep giving you updates on our progress.
I'm joined by Thomas Lamb, Myriad Uranium CEO. Thomas, good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. It's great to be back.
Thanks. You returned from PDAC last week. How was there? Did you have a lot of meetings? Tell us more.
Yeah, PDAC was good. We were also invited to pre-PDAC, the Red Cloud event, and we had some surprisingly good one-to-one meetings. I presented there. You know, it was very positive there for us. As we were speaking earlier, I really hope that uranium can bring up the rest of the commodities too, you know, inject excitement in gold and silver and copper and everything else, because those juniors maybe are not as positive as we are right now. But uranium, there was a good vibe and lots of investor interest. So it was a good PDAC for us.
Excellent. So the uranium sentiment is very good, but did you have any talks specifically about the Myriad projects? Did investors approach you? I mean, the retails and the big boys.
We did, actually. We had a surprising amount of interest. This is going to translate, I'm confident it's going to translate into access to financing from really good investors, and met a fair number of retail investors, and met a number of strategic groups from North America, from Australia, a few from Europe who really want to get into our project somehow, whether it's by investing or doing a transaction too. So it was really dynamic, lots of interesting conversations. You know, I have this feeling that M&A, it's not just us, but you know, in the sector, M&A will come.
Yeah.
And I really, you know, I can feel that coming. Lots of good meetings in that regard.
Yeah, agreed about the M&A. I believe that we are entering the period of more M&A, definitely. Thomas, let's kick off with Niger first. You have brilliant projects there, some formerly owned by Areva. But before we go to the details about them, can you tell us more about the current situation in Niger? from your perspective, are we going to full normalization after the coup?
Well, I think we probably will. It's going a little more slowly than I had anticipated myself, although I am not the expert on this. I've been in Africa for a long time. I've been working and living in East Africa for 11 years prior to becoming CEO here of Myriad. And so I thought I was familiar. It turns out West Africa, still lots of similarities, but just a bit of a different dynamic. So I really need to defer to the real experts, Stephen Roman, Daniel Major, and with the comments that they're going to have or they've already made. But my feeling is that we're about halfway there to transitioning back to a normal, stable situation. I'm confident we will. Okay, I guess the ultimate conclusion is I'm confident we will. Problems are being solved. These are things like borders, sanctions, getting the key supplies into the country, et cetera. These are being solved step by step. So I have this feeling like another 6 months or so, we're going to be back in business there and feeling comfortable operating there. Obviously a couple little significant things need to be solved. The politics, if the Americans step up, if it's rumors or maybe it's much more than that, the Americans step in, they've put their new ambassador in there, they're going to take over the security management, I believe, from the French. If that kind of all happens the way I think it's being mooted right now, discussed, then maybe we're going to have a new beginning there. Yeah, we'll just have to see what happens with the Chinese and the Russians who have some interests in Niger now. But I remain optimistic. I think Dasa is going to lead the charge, and we're going to slipstream in behind and hopefully have a really good run, because like you say, we have wonderful projects there. We're going to
definitely
great value.
I would like to ask you, for the new or potential investors in Myriad, that you give us an overview of your Niger project. What do you have there? 2-minute answer, please.
Yeah, fine. We have 1,822 square kilometers across 4 licenses. It's a really big land package. As you mentioned, formerly owned by Areva. They did some basic work on them. They drilled 165 holes, let's call it. They encountered uranium in lots of them. The 4 licenses sit, especially the northern license, right up against Immerern. That's the world's 2nd largest uranium deposit, 8 kilometers away. The structure that emanates out of Immerern to the north goes right into our license, where it intersects with the Madaouela structure, Madaouela fault that goes up into the Goviex's Madaouela project, which we also border. And then the northern border are Somer and Cominac. These are uranium mines. So we were in position A. Areva had planned 65 holes as a next step at the intersection of those faults in that northern license. It's a really world-class exploration license. Then we have 3 other licenses a little further south. Briefly, the central license sits at the intersection of the Azusa fault, which hosts Dasa, and the Arlet fault, which hosts Immerern a little bit to the north. Areva/Orano shot seismic there. We have great drill targets. We have 2 other excellent licenses. So it's a really good exploration package.
Yeah, agreed. Thomas, do you plan to carry any work in 2024, or the things are paused for now?
We're discussing it. Things are paused for the moment, and we'll just have to see. It's a little bit of work getting done on the ground in Niger by some groups, but for the moment, it's wait and see. We're hoping to.
Okay. Since you are focused more on your new project in Wyoming, which we will cover next, my question is the option for sale of Niger properties on the table? Do you see the interest of some people, companies buying maybe your project? I'm not asking you that you disclose if you're in the middle of talks. I'm asking this in a general way.
Yeah, well, we pivoted to Wyoming after the coup in July, and we did a deal to acquire the 75% earnable interest in the Copper Mountain uranium project. It's called Copper Mountain, but it's uranium. And we did it without fully understanding the project, and our partners didn't fully understand it. We couldn't. There wasn't enough data at the time. Yeah. It's turned out to be 10 or 100 times better than anybody imagined. So now it makes sense probably to split the company and either spin out Niger or do a deal on Niger, something, so that we can be one company can be pure play Wyoming and the other can be Niger, and for the, perfect for the investors who love the massive upside potential there, but understand that in the interim for the next 6 months plus, there's going to be uncertainty. So we understand that, bankers and strategic people understand that. Australians are very keen on it. You'll talk to Caroline from ENRG soon, I think.
Yeah.
She can give you some insight into how the Aussies are viewing Niger. So the answer is yes. And at Toronto PDAC and ongoing, we are looking at options. What do we do? There are private groups interested. There are Australian groups interested. Bankers interested in spinning it out because they, it has its massive upside. We have some people saying, even though our Wyoming project has come up aces, as we would say, saying that the Niger projects are even better. They're just, this is like, it's almost like, I don't want to go too far, but NextGen and their Arrow and their other Athabasca projects that are coming up with beautiful results. We have that potential in Niger, and people really understand that. Say we want Niger first and foremost because it sets, the big projects in Wyoming are tens of millions of pounds. 10, 20, 40, 50, 60 million pounds. Those are the Niger projects. Immerarn is 384 million pounds, and Dasa 300 million pounds plus. These are totally unbelievably huge projects in Niger, so people understand that. So something we'll end up doing something.
Yeah, definitely, it makes sense. If you ask me, it makes sense. Okay, let's move to Wyoming projects. You have reported recently about the historic drilling at Copper Mountain. What is the most important thing with this data you released?
So we were so excited to see it. We now understand why Anaconda, which briefly held the area in the mid-1990s, why they stepped in. I think there was a little spike in the uranium price at that point. I think they decided they were going to get active. They got the drill data for this area, which was going to be in the center or near the center of the central pit that Union Pacific had planned. Union Pacific had a 3-pit mine plan for our project in 1979. This is part of the central pit, and it's a high-grade section. Anaconda took about 85 some odd bore holes from that area and analyzed them, and we have those results, and we reported on them recently. That's what you're referring to. So big insight here, and this is the insight we're sure that Anaconda got to. This is an insight that we don't see in the Union Pacific historical documents. They were concerned with a moderate grade, big bulk tonnage, moderate grade mine at the time in 1979. What these results tell us is actually there's a high grade structure, a high grade core to the old central pit, and it connects with this faulting that occurs in the granite. And I'm not a geologist, so forgive me, everybody, if I
sure, no problem,
if I don't nail this. But first of all, high grade area where the grades, instead of being in the hundreds, are 1,000 ppm, 2,000 ppm, up into the mid 3,000 ppm. These are really high grades for Wyoming. And this central blob, we don't totally understand the structure of the blob, but we will in the future. And this gives us a roadmap to tracking the high grade at our deposit across the project area. This I've been alluding to, and I've been even saying in our news releases and interviews, that we have high grade. People see that we have these historic resource estimates that are fairly low or moderate grade across the project area, but we knew that actually we're very confident that we can upgrade significantly our average grade, and that will increase the volume that we have too. So that's what it means for us. And we're going to be able to track now with these insights the faults which carry the high grade. It's kind of a new approach.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very interesting. And it's going to lead to lots of exploration.
The way how I see it, it gives you a good guidance of re-evaluating the resources and confirming the feasibility of future mining, eventually taking the company much closer to production.
Exactly right. That's it. We're going to be able to, hopefully upgrade grade, volume, and it'll take us closer to production. Those are the three main points, which are fantastic for the company.
Yeah, definitely. Last time you and I spoke, you told me the story of how Pete Smith met a rancher who had a bunch of very important historical data about the project. And then I recall you said you didn't find the whole thing yet. Thomas, did you manage to find the whole thing in the meantime, or is there any data still missing?
No, there's quite a bit of data still missing, but we have acquired more. So we're constantly acquiring more. For example, we've located a few hundred more drill logs and some archives. We've purchased some data from another geologist that used to work there. So bit by bit, we're very lucky that we've acquired data for this relating to this key area in the central pit, the high grade area. So, instead of some data package that relates to an area off to the side that's not important, this is data to the key zone. But we do need more data. We don't have enough to upgrade our historic resource to current resource just with what we have. It helps, gets us quite a bit closer, but we're going to have to uncap old holes and put our own probes down and do some of our own drilling, the way things stand. So we're still on the hunt for more data. So that's the answer. We're partway there.
Yeah. You have increased land position there by 41%. Any plans for further expanding?
Absolutely. Yeah, everything is in process. We can't report on it all yet until we get the final sort of certificates, et cetera. But we are growing fast. The data package, I'll remind you and your viewers, that our data package reveals very exciting targets in our district. And I say district, but really it's the area that we show on the maps, that rectangle. We know where high grade areas are according to the historic data, and we are covering them. One thing I can speak about is because it's kind of semi-public, it's available out there. There's a mine called the Bonanza mine. They mined just only a few meters from our current boundary, but I can speak to it because it's in documents. It's out there. They mined also another historic mine right in our project area, 30,000 tons. They mined at 1.3%, I believe, uranium. That is right smack dab in the middle of our project area now, and that's very nice high grade uranium, as you know. So 30,000 tons. I think that ends up being around 600,000 pounds if you do the math.
Yeah,
2,200, but I'm not exactly sure. Yeah,
definitely.
We're acquiring all these things.
Yeah, you told me about the grades. What about the depth of the future deposit? Is that shallow deposit or?
We don't. Okay, well, this is an interesting question. I'll try to keep it really short. Union Pacific only drilled down to 500 feet with its drill holes, so that's not very deep. There's a suspicion that there are the feeder. A lot of the uranium came up from below. There's a suspicion that there be the feeder channels that, and if we could intercept those. For example, under the Arrowhead mine, there's the Arrowhead mine in the center of our project area, which produced 500,000 pounds. It may be that there are some channels beneath it that are very uranium rich, that are just a little bit deeper than Union Pacific went. So we don't know. I guess the answer is we don't know. There are these faults that we want to, that occur in succession with some structure at different angles. High grade lies in those. And then how deep do they go? At the moment, just down to 500 feet, because that's how deep the drilling went. We're excited to see what's underneath there. What if there is, as some of the historic documents talk about, and commentators, because we have an unconformity, some unconformity, I use that word. Things resemble in some ways the Athabasca deposits, and maybe things get very interesting a little bit deeper.
Definitely.
Just to be speculative, but hey, it's these are the experts that commented on it from Neutron Energy, which is now part of Encore, and they own half of our business area. Yeah. So these are good. These are smart guys who are looking at this and making those comments internally. Yeah.
Thomas, if I understand that correctly, you will not need a mill for this project.
So I keep repeating that. That is what the documents say. It's pretty easy. However, it may be that they need. So while my understanding is we're not going to need to build a mill or ship our ore to a mill, etc. I am sometimes corrected that it may be that there may need to be a little bit of crushing of some of the rock, and so, but what I understand is we can dig the ore and put it on a heap and leach it, as opposed to requiring a big mill the way a lignite brown coal uranium deposit, for example, would need a mill and others. So, I should actually start being a little more cautious and say that it's the documents that say that a mill will not be required.
No, Thomas, I get that part. So the current data are supporting ISR mining, but what are your geologists think about the ISR potential on the property?
Okay, so I always put it this way. Some documents from the 1970s report that a little bit of testing was done, and everybody's cautiously optimistic about ISR potential, especially over some parts of the deposit. But in 43-101 and having to be conservative, etc. Just want to make sure we didn't get knocked off. There we go. Okay, yeah, I had a call coming. So the historic documents say there's some reasons for optimism about ISR. More recently, David Miller, one of the world's leading in situ recovery experts, he worked for Areva, Orano, they're big companies. He also talked about it fairly recently. He's also cautiously optimistic. We have a first step test program that we can initiate when we're ready. Cost between $500,000 and $1 million to depending on the approach we take to do some initial ISR testing. So that's the answer. Cautiously optimistic. We cannot guarantee it.
Okay. That is a good answer. Thomas, what are the next steps for this project? Will you do any more exploration work on these properties?
So we need to get on the property when the snow's clear, which is happening right now. Our geologist will get there, find the old holes. I personally have seen a number of them. They're capped. A lot of them are capped with the cement. We're going to hopefully uncap the ones we want to uncap, see if the holes are intact, and we can drop our own probes down. We're going to do some drilling and and do some diamond drilling, some other types of drilling that are going to enable us to drop our probes down to confirm the historic resource estimates. And we're going to do some exploration drilling also. So, and then plus on top of that, the usual type things, mapping, geochem, geophysics. So we have a plan for the summer. We're going to raise money soon and spend it at Copper Mountain advancing the project. You're probably going to ask me about the raise.
I will.
Yeah. So we have a more modest budget that we could execute of, call it $3 million, or we could raise 5 million and be more ambitious, which is probably a more likely scenario. And do some really exciting things. The more news is coming regarding the area that we have and we're expanding and into, and the targets that are located in those areas. So one good thing is Neutron Energy / Encore that held part of our license area. They laid out a plan in their internal documents as to what their next steps would be. They have it laid out in our geologist. We've reviewed these things closely, and it's pretty hard to improve on the work they did and the planning that they did. They've invested a lot of time and energy and expertise in their planning, and we'll vary it a little bit because there's some new technology, some new understanding over the last 15 years. But we can stick pretty close to it, and top-notch plan. So we're very lucky. I mean, this is huge value in this really high-end team that developed the plan for them, and we just get to step right into it and leverage it.
Yeah, we all know this is historical data. We always have to take that with a grain of salt. It's not official, so to say. But let's say you move this to a present NI compliant resource category.
Yep.
I believe I think that this project would be one of the biggest deposits in Wyoming if you bring that to this new category, right? Am I seeing this right?
I believe so. I've looked at the comps. Of course, companies use this hub and spoke system
Model.
there. So, if you put all their projects together and then aggregate them, and maybe their numbers get high too. But certainly we have the potential to be one of the biggest projects in Wyoming. And as some of our friends close to the company, I mean, we're right up there near the top potentially. It's going to require some investment, but the owners in the past are optimistic about there being a lot of uranium there and more. I mean, we just have to keep expanding, doing work, and this could be a really big project area with huge uranium endowment. In the granites that sit nearby, there's 50 ppm of uranium all around. I mean, that's half of the cutoff grade that Union Pacific had for some of its mine, resource estimates. I know 100 ppm. It's so 50 ppm in the granites. That's background. The place is it's very rich uranium. So the big volume at Copper Mountain.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned the future raise. What is the current financial situation for the company? How much do you have in the till?
Yeah, we probably have around $600,000 Canadian in the till. We burn it slowly at the moment. And so we're going to need more money to explore. Again, 34.2 million shares outstanding, a reminder.
Yeah.
So it's very tight. Yeah. And so we'll raise more money. We'll do it probably the usual way, which should be just a slight discount to the trading price, and possibly people like these half warrants, et cetera, that there'll probably be something like that. So, stay tuned, everybody. But definitely interest as we, just to be a little bit editorial, if we'd known what we have here, like we did this deal into a small Canadian company. If we knew what we had here, we would have unified ownership and listed in the US at a really big valuation, because compare us to the comps. We have a ton of uranium. Yes, it's historic, but it's the product of 2,000 drill holes, huge amount of money spent by Union Pacific, and great experts, 6 deposits, etc. So
yeah, the uranium is there.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. You brought Jim Davis to your technical committee. He knows the project. Tell me more about Jim.
Jim is 90 years old plus, still
90
sharp.
Really? I didn't know that.
And
But
he's still
he remembers the things that
this was his home project. He discovered in the 1950s, he discovered the Arrowhead mine at the center of our site. That was his first thing he did. He's discovered a number of gold and uranium mines in his career. He's a famous geologist now, had an amazing career. He's worked for top companies, Kennecott, Freeport, and of course, Union Pacific, et cetera. So he discovered the Arrowhead mine in the center of our project, and he ran Union Pacific's exploration of our project area in the 1970s. All these, 2,000 drill holes. He understands it like nobody else. And he's very excited we're back, because of course they shut down our project 1979, 1980 after 3 Mile Island, and the uranium price fell, and that was it. In the United States, they shut down the sector, basically. Mm-hmm. And he was standing there after all this work with his colleagues, saying, hey, we have this amazing project. I guess we're going to have to pack up and go home. So he's really delighted that we're back. He believes in huge potential, and he's extremely excited about the exploration potential. So we already have very good deposits, and it's a great project already. But the exploration upside, he's very excited about, and he understands it. I just want to add that we're the first group since 1982 to unify ownership of the project area. Most recently, half of our central area with this high grade, the center of the pit, half of it was owned by Neutron, aka Encore. The other half was owned by Strathmore, an old version of the company, Strathmore. Yeah. And they could never unify the ownership. They talked about it, but they never quite got there. And then that was the end of the last cycle. But we have the whole thing. So that is it's extremely exciting.
Yeah. Thomas, final question. What and when can investors expect from Myriad in the terms of news flow for the remainder of 2024?
So we're going to be talking about more acquisitions. That's going to be ongoing. You'll see that. We'll be talking about our financing soon, our summer exploration plans soon. That's snow dependent. We have to get on there, and then we'll make our plan. And then we get to talk about what we're doing, our activities, what we're finding. As things develop in Niger, we'll keep everybody up to date on that. We'll see whether we end up engaging in some transactions there or not. So a lot of news coming. Yeah.
Exciting times ahead, right?
I think so. Okay. I think so. As we spoke about at the beginning, before we started the interview, I'm very optimistic. It's a great feeling. Things are going our way right now, and knock on wood. It's a risky business. Things can change, but at the moment, we're looking good.
Here in Croatia, we don't have wood in front of us. We always knock on the head.
Okay, fine. I'll do it.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay, that was Thomas Lamb, Myriad Uranium CEO. Thomas, I wish you luck with the Wyoming project, with Niger, all your projects. Thank you for coming to my show. I'm joined by Caroline Keats, Chief Executive Officer for Energy Elements. Energy Elements is an exploration company with assets that include uranium, lithium, copper in few jurisdictions: Niger, Botswana, and Canada. The company is listed on Australian Stock Exchange under the symbol EEL. Caroline, you're my guest for the first time. Welcome. I'm looking forward for this chat with you today.
Thank you very much, Lucian. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm looking forward to talk to you a little bit about energy elements and our assets.
Great. Why don't we start with your background from scratch? Tell us your origin story. How did you become Energy Elements CEO?
So I started my career, Lucian, as a lawyer. I moved in-house. I took on senior legal, corporate services, and commercial roles.
Mm-hmm.
I became the managing director of a company called Tiger Resources in 2019, which is a copper producing company in the DRC. Ultimately, all of my background has been in copper and uranium assets. So uranium assets where I worked at Paladin, copper assets where I worked at Mawson West and Tiger, all producing companies. I've essentially worked in exploration, development, and operations, although I love working in operations, and hence we're always anxious to move our projects from where they currently are, which are early exploration projects, through that development phase. And I've spent a lot of time working in foreign jurisdictions. So I've worked in Malawi, Namibia, the DRC, Cameroon, South Africa, and Niger. So, you know, this asset here that we're looking at in Niger, our Agadez uranium project, is close to my heart. I've done due diligence on that asset when I worked at Paladin. But we can talk about that later. But look, it's not just about me. I have a great team, and my board is built of people that I have such a high regard for, and also the technical team that supports me as well.
Excellent, excellent background, and I see that Africa is in your blood. So excellent. Like I said at the beginning, your company is active in exploration of three crucial elements, that is uranium, lithium, and copper. I would like if we cover the uranium part first. You have an exploration project in Niger. Can you tell us more about the project? At what stage is that project, and what are you currently doing over there?
So we have an early exploration project in Niger, which is our Agadez uranium project. So we acquired that asset in 2022 after the board made a strong decision to support being focused on that clean energy space. And so Niger was clearly, right in the right spot. I'd been presented with the uranium asset. I knew the uranium asset. The technical guys knew the uranium asset. So it was something that we said, okay, this is something that we can work with. It's in a jurisdiction that we also understand. When we acquired the uranium asset, we got on the ground and we wanted to do some work as soon as possible. The first thing that we did was that we acquired some historical exploration data from Paladin, who had these assets before. It allowed us to do a historic resource update. We got on the ground, did a drilling program. We've defined an exploration target, and also we updated the resource. So there were a number of reasons why these assets were really interesting to us when we went down that path. The first reason was because of the historical work that's been done. So you've got a project that had been considered by the French. They had done radiometric studies, they had done a wildcat drilling program, and then they identified this as an area of interest. And that was done in the 1950s and the 1960s, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2007, an Australian company called NGM Resources acquired these assets. They undertook a drilling program of around 9,500 meters of drilling, and they defined an they defined a shallow inferred mineral resource in 2010. And then Paladin acquired these assets in 2010, did a further 6,500 meters of drilling on the tenements that we currently own. And ultimately, they confirmed that there was mineralization at depth similar to the deposits that are located at Dasa and Orano. So these tenements, we have 3 permits. They cover 726 kilometres squared. We currently have a shallow inferred resource of 31.1 million tonnes. We have a grade of 315 per million, and we also have a 21.5 million pounds of U3O8. So we're situated about 70 kilometres south of Dasa and half an hour away from the Agadez project. The Agadez city. So we liked it because of the region, because we've also got Orano that's operating there. Now, Orano have been operating and producing uranium in Niger for the last 50 years. And so, because they've been there for that long, there's a great deal of experience in the region. You've got a lot of trained personnel in the region. In fact, the Orano mines have made Niger one of the largest producers, in fact, the 5th largest producer of uranium globally, if you look at them from, I think, 2013 to 2022.
Yeah. You had an exploration program in 2022. What were the best goals you achieved back then?
So what we wanted to do, what was really interesting is that we acquired the asset, and so quickly we were able to get on the ground. So it just demonstrates that Niger is an easy jurisdiction in order to do exploration work. We were able to get on the ground within 2 weeks of signing, completing the transaction. We did 5,500 metres of drilling. It was a shallow drilling program. Most of that drilling was rotary mud, with about 160 metres being diamond core. Now, that just means that it's a very cost-effective program for us, because you're not spending a lot of money doing diamond drilling. The mineralisation basically sits from surface down to a depth of around 40 metres. We saw grades of between, the highest grades we saw were between 1,100 and 2,000 parts per million in 2 metre intercepts. And, for us, we were able to identify mineralisation which was near at surface, as I said, from surface down to about 40 metres. And the mineralisation remains open in multiple directions, at depth as well. And so we also know that we have mineralisation that is available to us in the deeper zones, which means that we also have the potential for even higher grades than we've been able to identify now. But right now, we've been focused mainly on the shallow, lower grade mineralisation.
Okay, but like you said, Global Atomic is very near to your deposit, and Global Atomic found some Athabasca grades uranium on their deposits. And like I said, since you are in the proximity and the same trend, actually, your property has a high probability of similar discovery. In your last exploration program, you found outstanding levels of uranium mineralization, up to 34–35% uranium oxide in samples collected from the base of Paleo Channel. I know I know it's early to draw parallels, but definitely a good sign, right?
It's a good sign, but what you're talking about is the rock chip sampling program that we did.
Yeah.
Where 90% of the samples that we identified had grades above 500 parts per million, and this was at surface, right? 5 of them had grades above 10,000 parts per million, and then the top 2 had grades of 26 and 34%. So what it did was that it confirmed what we already knew, that there is mineralisation at high grades, and it confirms our belief that we'll be able to find more pounds in the ground at a higher grade. But we've got a multiple-pronged strategy. One, let's increase the pounds in the ground, even if it is a lower grade. And then as part of another strategy, look for deeper mineralisation that has the higher grades as well. And look, we're in the Mersoï Basin. You have Global Atomic, you have Goviex, you have Orano, all operating there, and they've been doing it successfully for many years. And we know that Global Atomic and Goviex are on the verge of development.
Yeah.
And that's exciting for us.
Of course. I mean, those deposits, like you said, are very shallow, and that will make easy to extract uranium when you come to this phase, definitely. What do you have any cooperation with Global Atomic, or maybe better to say, what are the synergies you can have with Global Atomic?
Well, I think it's everyone in the region right now is very focused on Niger and the situation in Niger. Needless to say, there was a coup there in the middle of last year, which has obviously, brought a lot of attention to being able to work in that jurisdiction. Yeah. And, we keep in close contact with Stephen, Global Atomic, and we've also been in contact with the Daniel from Goviex. And because it's really important that everyone is on the same page and that we're all working together in order to ensure that, the jurisdiction is positive. Because ultimately, when we're successful, Niger is successful. But when Niger is successful, so are we. So there's the cooperation in terms of, assisting each other, information, keeping in contact. But then on top of that, there is the opportunity for Global Atomic and us potentially going further down the track for us to be able to utilize or, utilize the plant for some of our material. It's early days yet. We've got to do more work in the on the ground. We've got to increase our pounds. We've got to get a better understanding of our mineralization, but that's certainly something that can be talked about further down the track.
Exactly. That's my point. Caroline, what are the next steps for this project in the terms of exploration?
So off the back of the drilling program and the resource update, so when we did the drilling program, we updated the resource so that we've got the 21.5 million pounds at 315. That was a doubling of the resource of what it was from the historical resource. So we were really proud about that we were able to achieve that in a relatively short period of time. It also goes to the confidence that we have on the ground with regards to our assets. And we've had the opportunity to go back and look at all of the historical work based on, the Paladin historical data. Because I don't know if I said to you, there was 24,000 meters of drilling done on those tenements before we even acquired these assets. So then we've done another 5,500. Off the back of that work, our understanding of the mineralization across our tenements and also the regional geology, we've defined an exploration target. So that exploration target's between 90 and 130 million pounds of U3O8. And we're looking to see grades of between 300 and 400 in 2 to 5 meter intersections. The reality is that we need to test this exploration target, and in order for us to do that, what we'll do is we've defined a drilling program, a 20,000 meter drilling program, 379 holes shallow drilling program, average depth of 50 meters, and we look to implement that in phases. Last year, we did some ground resistivity test work, and we did that over areas where we knew what the mineralization structures already look like based on historical drilling and radiometric surveys that had been done. And we found that to be quite a useful technique for us to use in order to identify what mineralization kind of looks like near surface. And we'll utilize that in order to target our drilling so we don't have to do systematic ring pattern drilling everywhere. And in addition to that, we're just in the process of completing a trenching program, and we've done that over areas that are relatively shallow, high-grade mineralization. We wanted to understand what the channels look like. So, that's an exciting step for us as well, and we've done that work now.
Excellent. So there is no obstacles that you continue your exploration work. Caroline, how is the situation right now in Niger? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? Is the situation going to full normal?
So the coup happened in July, end of July last year. I was in Niger in the middle of July, and we got our lithium tenement at that point in time. So you couldn't tell that something like that was going to happen. It wasn't something, there was a tension that was building up. It sort of happened. And since that time, ultimately, I've been there twice. I went back there in November. I've been back there in February. I look to go back again. Ultimately, the most important thing for us, and it's always been in the way that we run our business, is that we build a good relationship with government. We get them to understand what the commercial imperatives for us are. The only way for us to succeed is for foreign investment to go into Niger and feel happy that their security in title and that they've got their money's not being put at risk. And I think the government needs to understand that from us. And the other part is that they need to understand that we're serious about doing the work. This isn't some, place that we talk about from the Perth office. We go there, we have that conversation with them. We understand what the situation is on the ground. And based on my time, on my experience and my time in Niger post the coup, everything seems very positive. The mines department are very committed to getting things back on track and moving quickly. And, the conversations that we've had with the ministers over that period of time have been very positive as well. And ultimately, Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world. Yeah. And they need the foreign investment in order to generate revenue, and they need the projects to actually develop in order for it to, become revenue generating.
Yeah, and definitely uranium. But that said, you have another project in Niger, and that is a lithium exploration project. It is situated some 60 to 70 kilometers from to the east from your uranium project. Can you tell us more about the status of this project and current works and plans for the future?
So, as I said, middle of last year, I went to Niger and there'd been a series of discussions and we were able to secure that tenement. Yeah. It's a really large land package, 500 kilometers squared, and yet located conveniently, right next door to our Agadez project, which makes it easier in terms of exploration teams moving from one part to the next. And with Agadez basically sitting in the middle, it's incredibly, it's easy. It's easy to do work there. The reason why we like those assets was because there's been some historical sampling or historical work that had been done on the ground, which had identified lithium anomalies and pegmatitic material. And this tenement is actually situated on one of the largest ring dikes in the world. So if you have an image of it, the tenement sits on this huge circle, which is really interesting. And adjacent to that permit, you've had alluvial tin mining that's been historic. So all of those things basically indicated to us that that this was an area that was incredibly important. No one's really looked for, lithium's not been a big thing in Niger in the past. Yeah. And so when we were able to identify this as a potential prospect for the company, we sort of ran hard in order to try and achieve, to obtain that permit. We did a rock chip sampling. It was just a small rock chip sampling program. It was a reconnaissance program just to understand access and how to work in that particular area because we hadn't been there before. Mm-hmm. We did, as I said, the small rock chip sampling program essentially confirmed the historical work that had been done. So ultimately, with regards to this project now, we look to do a further sampling program because the area that we looked at was really only about 2.5 kilometres. And as I said, 500 kilometres squared is a very large area. Definitely. And any works in 2024? Yes, so we will look to do another field program in Niger later in the year. Okay, same question for your Manitoba lithium project. What is the current status? What are you doing over there, and what are the plans? So we recently were able to secure 3 exploration permits in Manitoba. We've made an application for another area, again, large area in total, around 500 kilometres squared. When we identified these areas, what we did was we went back and looked at before we actually obtained these tenements, we looked back at the entire area and looked at historical exploration work. And so what we were able to do was look at historical drilling and identify areas where there had been pegmatites in the historical drilling. So based on that, and also looking at the geological setting, we identified the 4 areas. And so the Handle Lake and Split Lake area, Handle Lake and Split Lake areas are to the north of Manitoba in the Trans-Hudson, Oregon. And we liked those areas because they had pegmatites in the drilling, but also because they were sitting on granite greenstone contacts. The other areas, the Unwin Lake and the Beaver Hill Lake projects, we haven't got the Beaver Hill Lake project yet, sitting in the pegmatite field in Manitoba in a very similar geological setting to the Tanko mine. And the Tanko mine is an LCT producing mine, and they've been operating for 50 years and producing for 50 years. And in fact, the Tanko mine, I think, is the only, or has been the only, lithium producer in Manitoba for many years. So, in relation to what we'll be doing with regards to these projects, during the course of this year, we'll do a desktop study and then look to get on the ground and do some initial field work and ground truthing.
Excellent. You also have Botswana copper project. Can you give us an overview of this project and who are your partners there?
We actually only have an interest in the permit. So the Virgo permits, we have a 25% interest in there, and that's with ARC Minerals. And those permits basically sit in close proximity to Kumakao's Zone 5 and Banana Zone projects. We have the Hansi West project where we have a 10% interest, and our partners there are Kavango Resources, and those tenements basically sit along strike from Sandfire's Matheo mine. So an interesting group of projects, and we believe that there's a great opportunity for success, and so our shareholders will benefit as a consequence of that.
Okay, Caroline, I have to ask you, what is your mid to long-term plan? Will your business model stay the same, to have multiple metals in multiple jurisdictions, or maybe to be more focused on one commodity, on one project? What's the plan here?
Well, our flagship project is our Agadez uranium project. It's got a resource. Our priority is to advance that project. Obviously, with the situation in Niger right now, we're being cautiously optimistic with regard to, how much work we do on the ground right now. But the reality of it is that Niger has, over the last 50 years, while it's been producing uranium, has had 5 coups and 1 attempt coup. And during that whole period, uranium continues.
Yeah, Orano never missed one shipment from 1971. That is unbelievable. And we had 5 coups, like you said. It's unbelievable. Caroline, is your company open for M&A? Are you searching for other projects? Are some companies knocking at your door, trying to acquire your projects? Tell me more.
We're open for M&A. We're constantly looking at projects. There are always projects across our desk. We need to do something that is value accretive and ultimately that's going to bring shareholder value, and that's something as a project that we believe in, that we can take to the next level. I think, as I mentioned to you, my team, my board have got, and my technical team have come with a lot of expertise. So I don't know if I mentioned James Eggins, who's our non-executive chairman, has been in sector for 40 years, and he started his career at Narvalek. He went on to work at Olympic Dam, so he has spent 15 years there managing their logistics and marketing. He went on to Paladin, which is where actually I met him, and he's been the chairman of the Nuclear Information Centre, has been on the board of the World Nuclear Association and the Copper Development Centre. I've got Quinton, who is a mining engineer and a principal at Cube Consulting, and he spends his days converting resources to reserves. And in fact, he's the CP at Deep Yellow for Deep Yellow's assets, so uranium assets. So I think that from our point of view, we are committed to working on assets and not only advancing our current assets, but taking this to the next level.
What about jurisdiction, favorable jurisdiction for M&A? Is it just Africa or it's Canada, US? Tell me more.
You go where the assets are. You go where the assets are. Right?
Brilliant answer. I agree with that, definitely. Can you tell me more about your share structure and registry? Do you have any big names in the registry? Tell me more.
So our share registry is the top I think our 50% is represented by our top 20. There are a lot of holders who have been in the company for a long, long time. And so, you know, we've got a strong supportive base and they're committed. They're committed to the story, not only for the uranium asset, but they've been involved even before that with when we had full ownership of the copper assets as well. So they are, they're a loyal, we have a loyal shareholder base. In addition to that, we've got Endeavour Financial, who obviously came on the register as a consequence of the Niger transaction. And, you know, there's a gentleman called Kevin Bambra who is on our register, and Kevin was the president of Sprott Incorporated and also the CEO of Sprott Resources. And he came along as cornerstone investor in our last capital raising. We're really pleased to have him on our register, and he's been a really positive influence and supporter of the company. Yeah,
he's a very known uranium name, I agree. What is the current cash position of your company, and for how long is that amount going to get you through?
So we've got about, around 1.3 to 1.5. We've got another $500,000 coming in the next couple of months as a consequence of the sale transaction that we did at the end of last year, where we sold 90% of our Hansi West project. So ultimately, we've got cash to last us through the year. And, you know, we manage our cash very cautiously. We take a very disciplined approach to the way that we manage our money and how we spend it and where we spend it.
Do you know approximate number of your monthly cash burn of the company?
It's about between 100 to 150 per month, depending.
Oh yeah, of course. And one other question regarding skin in the game. Do you and your team have skin in the game? How much do you own?
The directors and management have about 4% of the company.
Okay. Last question. Your take, we didn't discuss that, your take on overall uranium market. Where are we now? Where are we going?
You know, it's never been like this before. It's never been like this before. It seems like such a critical time for, you know, the clean energy space and also for energy elements to even be in this market. You know, when we acquired this asset, uranium prices were sub $30 a pound. So, you know, there's been a big change in the focus. And you've got the demand and supply dynamics being at a critical juncture. We know that nuclear, represents 10% of the world's nuclear electricity. Nuclear represents 10% of the world's electricity. We know that currently there are about, 436 operating reactors, 62 that are currently being built, 110 that are being planned. That doesn't include all of those reactors that are in the process of looking for extensions in their mine life. And again, not even contemplating how this small modular reactor is going to come into the space and likely change everything. Global sentiment is so different than when it's ever been, to be honest, as it relates to nuclear, as countries are looking and people are looking at ways to decarbonize and move away from fossil fuels. What's played out in Europe has meant that countries are essentially looking at ways to become independent and not reliant on anybody else in order to meet their energy requirements. And so as a consequence, we've seen that nuclear has now become such a key component in the energy mix for many countries. So last year during COP28, you have 22 countries, which includes Japan, the US, Canada, France, and Britain, and Japan, all pledging to triple their nuclear energy capacity, to meet the 2050 target. So I think it's no wonder that you've got the World Nuclear Association saying that we're going to need, 30% more uranium by 2030 and 50% by 2040. So I think that's even just on the demand side, right? The supply side, you've got all the constraints associated with constraints following Fukushima. You've got historical supplies being used up. You've got the big producers, Kazakhstan and Cameco basically changing their forecasts or reducing their forecasts for the next few years. You know, it's going to be a really interesting time, and we have seen the impact of that with the increase in uranium price, which has gone up significantly. It's pulled back slightly right now, but you know what? It's the only way is really up.
Excellent point, Caroline. And that was Caroline Keats, Chief Executive Officer for Energy Elements. Thank you very much for coming to my show. It was a great chat, as I expected, and we will catch up again sometime soon.